Okay, so today is the first in a series of videos titled, Would I Buy It Again? I have to give credit to a YouTuber, Thrifty Beauty. I will link her channel down below, but she's got this awesome video called The Pop Effect. I will link that video down below too, but you have to check it out. So a lot of what she talks about is when you look at the palettes that you own, if you covered up this color or that color, would it cause you to buy it? Would you still buy it if that one color wasn't in there? And I've talked about that before on my channel. If you've watched some of my earlier videos, I talked about how I try to steer away from palettes because usually when you buy them, you tend to use a few of the colors, but not the majority of the colors, right? So I said I was not buying any more palettes. But thanks to Thrifty Beauty opening my eyes, the pop effect kept getting me. So I'm going to do a series called Will I Buy It Again? Or Would I Buy It Again? And we're going to go through a few palettes on each video and try to determine, would I buy it again? What made me buy it in the first place? So if you'd like to see the palettes we're going to talk about today, which is some high-end palettes, then just keep watching. Okay, so first we have two. Not just one, but a bitch had to get two. Marc Jacobs eyeshadow palettes. These are from his Eye-Conic line. So first let's talk about Scandalous. So why did I buy it? Well, I have a certain love for Marc Jacobs products. Of all the high-end products, his are my favorite. Rarely do I make a Marc Jacobs purchase where I'm disappointed. You know, sometimes you drop a lot of money and then you get it home and you go, what? I could have bought Wet n Wild. So I'm just naturally attracted to Marc Jacobs products. The other reason is YouTube. I'm such a consumer. YouTube made me buy it. So I don't know that I would have sought out his eyeshadow palettes if I hadn't seen some of my favorite YouTubers talking about them. So this is what the Scandalous palette looks like. Were there certain colors in this palette that made me go, I gotta have that palette? Yeah, there was two. This one called Scandalous, and this one called They Call Her. Those two made me open up this palette and go, yes! So let's do what Thrifty Beauty says to do and cover up these two. And this is what I'm left with. So if I didn't have those two colors, would I have dropped $49 on an eyeshadow palette with 7 colors? Let's look at that again. Hell no. Hell no. That is the most boring palette I have ever seen. Now, don't get me wrong. The quality of Marc Jacobs eyeshadow, wonderful. They're blendable. They're pigmented. They're a great eyeshadow formula. But so is Wet n Wild. So, if I use Thrifty Beauty's The Pop Effect formula, I would not purchase this eyeshadow palette again. Okay, next we have the Marc Jacobs Frivolux. This one is full of purples and grays. I'm actually wearing them on my eyes today. Okay, so what color attracted me to this palette? Well, there was just one, and that was outrageously. So if I take that out, would I buy this palette? That's a hard one, because I love this palette. I love this palette. But I do think I could hit up the Wet n Wild store. I think there's a Milani palette that's got these similar purple colors in it. So I dropped 50 bucks for one color. So would I buy this palette again? I love this palette. I do. I love it. I love it so very much. But she's right. Dang it, she's right. I can get those same purples and grays from Milani or Wet n Wild. So would I? Yes. I think I would still buy this palette because it's so stupid. I want a Marc Jacob palette because I love Marc Jacobs. I know that's silly to say yes, I would buy it again simply for the brand name, but I own a lot of Marc Jacobs products. I love Marc Jacobs, so I would want to have an eyeshadow palette by Marc Jacobs. So with that in mind, I would buy it. Let's say the name on the palette was Natasha Denona. Would I buy the palette? No. Moving right along. So this next palette I dropped $129 for. It is the Natasha Denona Lila palette. So what made me purchase this palette? Well, I'm going to admit this for the second time in this video. YouTube made me do it. Man, people on YouTube were going on and 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 on about this palette. And it just made me feel like, oh my gosh, I will stop at nothing until I own that palette. It will be mine. Damn it. We've got to stop listening to YouTubers. Think for ourselves, people. And I'm talking to myself here. So the palette is beautiful. It's got a nice faux leather case. It's purple. It's pretty. It looks really good displayed. Are there any particular colors that made me purchase this palette? Are there any particular colors that made me purchase this palette? There's more than one. I loved these shades. The purples. Honestly, I loved every color in this palette. Like, I can't hold my hand over one or two colors because I do love them all. I think if I were to create a palette, it would probably look almost identical to this. So there's no colors that I can cover up Thrifty Beauty to decide if I would purchase this palette again. The formula, I'll be really honest with you, I like other formulas better. I do think that Morphe formula is better. I do think that some of the Too Faced formulas are better. Not all, because they got some crappy palettes out there. Urban Decay formula, much better than the Natasha Denona. The Natasha Denona formula is, this is going to sound bad, it's for the fakers. This formula is, I feel, for the people who say they want a dramatic eye, but you put these bam colors on your eyes, they lose a little bit of the drama. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. One of the most vibrant colors in here is this purple. It is called Amethyst. I mean, I can barely get any on my shadow brush. So we're going to dig. So there it is. My battery died. Anyway, with this color, Amethyst, look, you can't even, and I didn't wipe it off. I didn't wipe it off. You can't even see it now. But anyway, with the color Amethyst, it is probably the most vibrant color in this collection. And you saw me with my brush. I had to dig in the pan. I had to swipe it back and forth on my hand. So there's not a huge pigment payoff with this palette. It's just pretty. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. If I designed a palette, it would be all of these colors, but I would want a high pigment payoff. I think one month, this was my monthly favorites. When I first got it, I used it quite a bit. I mean, you can see I've made a dent in some colors. But I was starting to realize that to really get the colors I want, I had to work really, really hard to get the eye look. Like this with the Marc Jacobs, it was so easy. There's a video of me doing this eye look and I'll show you. But this palette will probably at some point show up on my palette roulette series. That's where I pick random, actually let an app pick the palette for me on camera, so I don't know what colors I'm using that day. And I do an eye look with that palette. So this will come up eventually and you guys will see me work. I gotta put in some work. So this was a favorite of mine until I realized how much I was having to put into an eye look. So Natasha Denona palette, would I buy it again? No. So with the Marc Jacobs palette and the Natasha Denona, that is $180 I could have saved if I had just done a little research on the palettes. I think this is what I think happens, particularly with palettes like this. People are swept away, myself included. It happened to me. I am guilty. Don't judge me. I'm a consumer, just like you guys. But I do need to be more aware. But I got swept away in the hype of this palette. I got swept away by how pretty it was. I got swept away by the colors. And you can't get swept away by the reviews, because I'm confident the people that bought this palette and gave it raving reviews are people that don't want a standout look quite like this. They want the pretty colors. They want the faux leather beautiful palette on the outside. They want to say they own a Natasha Denona palette. So, a couple of things I've learned from this. One, we're going to go through all my palettes. All my eyeshadow palettes. All my highlighter palettes. Because I think there are palettes that I love. And I talk about how much I love them on my channel. But would I repurchase them? Do I pull for them a lot? I have to answer these questions on these palettes. And I kind of owe a duty to you guys, even though I love the palette, because technically I do love this palette. I have to be more aware of why I love it, if that makes sense. Why do I love it? And if I'm going to encourage you guys to purchase it, why am I encouraging you to purchase it, right? Is it because it's got a pretty case? So the lesson that I learned is, one, I have to think about my purchases in a different strategic way. And two, I have to think about the way I portray some of these palettes to you guys. Because if I'm encouraging you to go buy something like this, I need to let you know how I like it, how it performs, and why I purchased it. And then I'm kind of thinking about not doing first impressions. I don't know. I may continue doing the first impressions, but had I done a first impressions on this, I would have been over the moon excited with my shiny new $130 toy. And I think my first impression would have been like, it's amazing. If you can afford it, go get it. You gotta have it, right? Because your first impression is like the first time driving your new car. You're like, hell yeah, I love this car. And then after about a month of, you know, it guzzling the gas, you're like, why did I buy this car? Right? So my mentality is going to change if I do first impressions. I may always continue to put some sort of disclaimer, or I may let you guys know a little bit more in depth why I purchased it, why I liked it. I have to find a way, if I continue with first impressions, to make it a first impression and not, oh my God, this is amazing, go get it, right? I don't want to do that to you guys like it was done to me. So anyway, that was the first in our series of, would I buy it again? Or would I repurchase? I don't know what I'm going to call it, but that was the first in the series. Until next time, my loves.